Well, despite Jayden Daniels playing like a superstar as of late, I'm going to tell you in today's Locked On Eagles why I'm more confident in this NFC Championship compared to both 2017 and 2022.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Louis DiBiase joining you on this Wednesday edition of the show. We are brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Eagles are in their third NFC Championship in the last 8 seasons. They are yet again one win away from making it to the Super Bowl. And while they hosted all 3 games at the Link, 2017 against Minnesota, 2022 against San Francisco, now 2024 against, of course, Washington, I was pretty confident in each matchup. But I'm more confident in this game compared to those other 2. Like, I think when you look back at it, 2017, look, I was nervous about how Nick Foles was going to look. Against Atlanta the week before, he was shaky. The end of the regular season, when he went in for Carson Wentz, he was not very good. The offense barely got by to get the 1 seed. On top of Minnesota coming in, being the number 1 overall defense, it felt like it was their time, a storybook season after the miracle in Minneapolis with Stephon Diggs' walk-off touchdown in the divisional round against New Orleans. Like, I was confident, but I was really nervous about that 2017 game. And then the way it started definitely didn't help. Until Patrick Robinson got that pick 6, I was not very relaxed. And then 2022, like, yeah, the Eagles were an absolute juggernaut that year, but at the same time, San Francisco's roster was loaded. So I just felt like that was going to be King Kong against Godzilla. Again, yeah, at home, at the Link, you're always going to feel confident in that kind of situation. But compared to those 2 games, I'm more confident in the Eagles heading into this matchup with the Commanders than both of those matchups. Like, yes, Jayden Daniels, by far the best quarterback they've played in one of these games. And I would even go as far as not just the last 2 matchups against Minnesota and, of course, San Francisco, but all of their NFC titles, which there's been 8 of them, crazy enough, in the 2000s. I think Jayden Daniels this year is the best quarterback they've ever faced in the Final Four. Like, who else have they played? Michael Vick was good in 2004, but he wasn't rookie Jayden Daniels. They played Jake Delhomme and, Brad Johnson, Kurt Warner a couple times. I guess Kurt Warner might be like the second best one, especially the Greatest Show on Turf in 2001. But I think Jayden Daniels tops those guys. I mean, look at his playoff stats. He's on an absolute heater, 283.5 yards per game passing. Average completion percentage is 69.8. He's attempted at least 30 passing attempts in both of those matchups against Tampa Bay and Detroit. Beat 2 really good teams on the road to get to the NFC title. Like, he's by far the best quarterback they've played. And Jayden Daniels, I should say Jalen Hurts, is banged up, which makes me a little bit nervous. But why is Daniels having one of the most impressive rookie seasons in NFL history? It's because he's taking a roster that really is not Final Four caliber, and he's getting them to 1 win away from the Super Bowl. Like, I will give him credit. He is proof of why you do everything you can to find a franchise quarterback, because it can elevate everything. Can you win other ways like the Eagles are right now? Absolutely. But when you have a guy like Jayden Daniels, who you can ask to throw 30-plus times, he can run the football, he can throw you to wins, not just with like explosiveness, but efficiency. I mean, he really is advanced for a quarterback. And the Eagles have had some tough quarterback matchups in the playoffs. Jordan Love, Matt Stafford, and Jayden Daniels was, I think, the toughest 3-man combination you could have played in the NFC postseason. So yes, as a guy that respects elite quarterback play, he's on another level than Brock Purdy or Case Keenum or anyone you played in the 2000s, and I don't think it's close. But he's had such a historic year because this team had no business getting to the Final Four. Like, their roster is not bad. They have some really good talent. Terry McLaurin, our guy Zach Ertz, going to be tough playing him in the Final Four. I think Brian Robinson's a really underrated running back. Mike Sandstrill is one of the better rookies this year at corner. Like, he's had an underrated rookie season. Like, he's legit. Frankie Louvu is, to me, a dirty player, but he's a good player as well. They've got good pieces up front. But their roster compared to the Eagles, like, why I'm still confident even with Jayden Daniels carrying this team is that he's kind of had to carry this team. Their roster does not match up with the Eagles. Like, every other position outside of quarterback, I think the Eagles have the advantage. I think they match up really well. And you should have beaten Washington in D.C. with a backup quarterback last time they played. With Kenny Pickett, if they force the turnovers they did then on Jayden Daniels, they got 5 turnovers in that game. And you get Jalen Hurts healthy. Like, I still think even with Jayden Daniels potentially having a great game, they're going to win this football game. Cosme up front, their starting guard is out. Jalen Carter coming off one of the best individual performances in playoff history for this team, at least that I've seen. Washington's defense, not all that good. 30th ranked rushing defense in football. And that's not good news with Saquon Barkley coming to take on your defensive line. The Lions ran for 201 yards last week, averaged over 8 yards per carry. So, yeah, again, it's not ideal. Like, an elite quarterback can steal any game. And that's what the big thing was I was focused on against Green Bay. Because, again, the Eagles roster is normally going to outmatch the other team. So, who's their quarterback? Can they steal the game? I thought Jordan Love, if he got hot, there'd be a chance Green Bay could win it. Matt Stafford and the Rams. The Eagles outmatch that roster. Matt Stafford throws for over 300 yards. He almost stole that game. Jayden Daniels could absolutely do it and keep it going. But unless Jalen Hurts is just so limited that he cannot move and the Eagles are turning the ball over and shooting themselves in the foot like last week. Like, if they do what they did last week against Daniels, yeah, they can and probably will lose. But if they play cleaner football like they did the majority of the year, even with a good Jayden Daniels game, like, I think they'll win this matchup because Matt Stafford had a great performance last week, but it still was not enough against this Eagles roster. And I really do think the other matchups across the board on offense and defense, the Eagles match up really well with Washington. As long as they just stick to the script, let Saquon Barkley carry you, you do not get in your own way, I think they're going to win this football game. Just roster-wise, I mean, Washington, it's an incredible Cinderella story. They're a 6th seed for a reason, though. And I've never seen, in fact, it's a fact, that a team has never won 4 straight road games. 2, 3 in the playoffs, 1 in the regular season. A team in NFL history has never won 4 straight road games to get to a Super Bowl. So the Commanders would be pulling off history on Sunday. Could they do it? Yes. Again, an elite quarterback can do virtually anything. They really can. And Jayden Daniels, outside of, like, I don't know, Andrew Luck in 2012, I've never seen a rookie quarterback this advanced. And it is impressive, and it makes me a little bit nervous for Sunday. But this Eagles roster is so good that at the link, I think they're going to take care of business. And there's no fluky snow this time around. The weather looks good. It's going to be an intense matchup, though. Like, in my lifetime, I've never seen the Eagles play an NFC East rival in a conference title. I've seen some big regular season games against Dallas, New York, Washington. I've seen a few playoff games against New York and Dallas. But this is a new level, at least for me personally, of an NFC East rival with the Eagles and another team. And last game was intense. Jalen Hurts, I think, gets cheap-shotted from Frankie Louvu, taken out of the game. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson gets kicked out of that game. It's a close final finish. Devontae Smith with that drop. Jayden Daniels leads them down the field. Like, it's going to be intense. Like, this is definitely going to be a fun one. I really can't believe. I thought round 3 could happen in the wild card round. But the fact that these two teams are playing in the Final Four in the NFC Championship it's kind of a cool story. Jalen Hurts versus Jayden Daniels is going to be a good one. I do think even with the run-heavy approach that they should stick to on Sunday, there still is a good amount of pressure on Jalen with Jayden Daniels on the other side of the field. I'll tell you why coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate. The variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team, Eagles money line this Sunday, or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs like Bills Chiefs. FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $300 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. We are getting ready for the Eagles' third NFC Championship game in 8 seasons this Sunday at the Link. Eagles, Commanders. Cannot believe they're playing Washington in this matchup. But again, even in a 2024 NFL season where the Eagles and other teams are challenging what we all thought it took to be a contender with a new kind of revolution, or I should say revival, of the running back position, the run game, defense kind of carrying football teams, a lot of star quarterbacks embracing more of these game manager roles like Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Yet, though, even with all that being said, Jayden Daniels is proving that if you have an elite quarterback, eventually at the end, like, that is probably going to be the difference. And I still think, even with Jayden Daniels being an elite quarterback and maybe the best rookie in NFL history, the Eagles still have the advantage in this game. Like, the Washington run defense is not good. So they're going to lean on number 26. They're going to lean on Saquon Barkley. There is a lot of pressure, though, on Jalen Hurts. Like, even though they are going to run the football a lot in this matchup, at the same time, if Jalen loses to a rookie quarterback in this division and they get to the Super Bowl, and again, you got to add context to the game. Like, does Jalen ball out and they lose on a final drive because the defense struggled? Is he just so banged up he can't do anything and it's really hard to evaluate his performance? But, like, there is some pressure with Jayden Daniels being a Commander. If he beats Hurts and he outplays him and he gets to a Super Bowl, like, I don't think it's indicative of anything about Jalen's long-term standing with the Eagles, but man, would that be a tough pill to swallow. Like, this does feel very new version of Carson Wentz versus Dak Prescott. Like, those vibes are kind of similar, but these two are actually legit and they win playoff games. So it's on another, it's actually, this is what we thought Carson Wentz against Dak Prescott would be. We only saw one big matchup against those two back in 2019 at the end of the year. So I think that's a real storyline. They probably don't see it that way. And again, Jalen Hurts will say, I'll throw for 100, I'll throw for 90 yards, and Jayden can throw for 400, but if we win the game, I don't care. And that's same for me. But I will say, like, it would be a long offseason if Jalen did not look good like last week. Jayden Daniels balls out, and the Commanders do move on. Like, Daniels going to do more than Hurts in this game to win because the Eagles have the advantage in almost every other matchup. But Jalen's going to have to, I think, make plays at the end. Like, I do think this could be a blowout, but with how good Daniels is, if it's close in the fourth quarter, you're going to need Jalen to make some plays because Jayden Daniels is one of the best fourth quarter quarterbacks that I've seen. I mean, just look at all of these late game heroics he's had this year against Chicago, against Philadelphia, against Dallas, then against Tampa Bay and Detroit in the playoffs. If you give him the ball last, like, that's going to be tough. It's going to be a battle of three of the best fourth quarter players in the league. Not just Jayden Daniels, but Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. Hurts and Saquon have been two of the best fourth quarter players in the league this year. Like, say what you will about Jalen's inconsistencies from quarters 1 through 3, but even in his bad games this year, he's been incredible in the fourth quarter. So I think this game could be a blowout. Like, if you told me the Eagles won by 20 plus, I wouldn't be surprised. But if it is close in the fourth quarter, it might come down to who gets the ball last. Because if Jayden Daniels has the ball last, how do you not bank on him scoring? If Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley have the ball last, how do you not bank on them scoring? Like, Saquon, I said it on the show yesterday, outside of Patrick Mahomes and maybe Jayden Daniels, I think even ahead of Jayden, he's been the best fourth quarter closer in the entire NFL this year, and you can include quarterbacks. And Jalen Hurts, again, there's been games he had 120 to 150 passing yards, but like, you look at the Baltimore game, you look at the game against Carolina, which he struggled for the majority of that matchup. You look at earlier this year against New Orleans and some other games too, where it was an up and down matchup. Jacksonville too, when he had to, even against Green Bay in the wild card round and LA, like when Jalen has to make plays, he does. So that's going to make for maybe an intense finish if this game is close, because these are three of the best fourth quarter players in the league. And that's a lot of pressure. Again, Jalen versus Jayden. That's a real storyline in this one, at least from a media perspective. I really hope Hurts' leg is healthy, though, because if this game is close, yeah, Saquon's going to carry them, but Hurts might have to make a few special plays in the second half with his legs. There's going to be a 3rd and long or two where he has to extend it. He's got to go make something happen. We still don't have any like specific news on the injury. We do have a report that Hurts will play on Sunday. Same with Quinyon Mitchell. Now the question is, okay, but is he playing at 70%? Is he playing at 90%? Is he at 100? Is he at 50 mobility-wise? Like, is he going to be just a stand-up pocket passer? Does he have to be a statue? Like, that's what I'm a little bit nervous about. Because Jalen's legs, they need Jalen's legs if they're going to win this game. Like, I'm more worried about that than anything that has to do with the passing game. Jalen Hurts has to be able to move. By the way, Jalen can make history on Sunday. He can become, and this shows his resilience and just the team in general. Like, so many teams after a Super Bowl loss, like the one in 2022, and a collapse like last year, that era of that team is over, right? They just don't come back from that. Jalen Hurts can become, and the stats prove it, Jalen Hurts can become the first quarterback since John Elway in 1997, which was when I was born, crazy enough. He could become the first quarterback since John Elway in 1997 to make it back to the Super Bowl after losing their first appearance. Like, that shows how tough it is to do what Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are doing right now. Like, they are so resilient, and you shouldn't be surprised. I mean, Howie Roseman has come back from the dead over and over and over again. So has Nick Sirianni. So has Jalen Hurts. Like, this team should be the Philadelphia Phoenixes. Like, they just rise from the ashes over and over again. And that's what this team's DNA and identity truly is. But it really is impressive that they are one win away yet again from a Super Bowl. Because, again, so many teams that when you suffer the combination, that's the thing is, like, the Falcons suffered a devastating Super Bowl loss. Same with Seattle. Those teams were never the same. The Eagles suffered that kind of devastating Super Bowl loss. And then the following year suffered one of the biggest collapses an NFL contender has ever gone through. So the combination of those two things, for this team to this year get back to this stage where they have a home game in the NFC title, one win gets you back to the Super Bowl, like, you have to give Jalen Hurts, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, all of this team so much credit for that, because it's rare. Like I said, another quarterback has not done that since 1997. 27 going on 28 years ago. That was the last time this happened. John Elway got it done in 97. A lot of that was because of TD in the run game. Maybe history is about to repeat itself with Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and the Eagles. Another guy, though, that always rises from the ashes, as I said, Howie Roseman. He brought in 5 different players and or coaches that are finalists for AP NFL Individual Awards. Who's going to win those awards, if any? We'll get into that coming up next, right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help you manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule, that can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace, it's covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter the promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, enter the promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOn, promo code SPACE80. All right, so 5 Eagles are up for individual awards according to the Associated Press. Let's get into who could potentially take home those awards. Saquon Barkley, he's up for 2 individual awards, MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. Zach Bond is a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. Pinch me on this one. 2 Eagles rookie cornerbacks are finalists for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Vic Fangio is up for Assistant Coach of the Year. In my opinion, who should win those awards versus who will? I think Saquon should absolutely win Offensive Player. I think Zach Bond should definitely win Defensive Player. And I think Vic Fangio should win Assistant Coach of the Year. Now, who do I think are going to win awards? I would say Saquon takes home Offensive Player of the Year. I do think Vic Fangio will get Assistant Coach. I don't think Zach Bond will get Defensive Player. I wish he would. I think he has the stats to back it up. His numbers are better than 2015 Luke Kuechly, who was a linebacker that won Defensive Player. I think Quinyon Mitchell was, from start to finish, the most dominant defensive rookie. Like Jared Verse, of course, had a lot of big-time moments. He's got that pass rusher bias, too. The numbers are more sexy with Verse. He looks good in the playoffs, too. I know that doesn't impact it, but, I think Verse will win it. But I think Quinyon was the better rookie from start to finish. So I think all of those guys, except for DeJean and Saquon for MVP, have a really good argument to win the awards. I do think, though, when it actually comes down to the results, Fangio will win Assistant Coach. Saquon will win Offensive Player. Fangio took, I don't know how he doesn't win Assistant Coach of the Year. The Eagles' defense last year was dead in the water, 26th overall. And this year, they're the number 1 defense. No team in NFL history has gone from that low of a total ranking to number 1. And the more impressive part of all of this is that the Eagles are the youngest defense in the league. So when you combine those two things, I think you got to give the award to Fangio. And then, of course, Saquon should absolutely win Offensive Player of the Year, which is basically MVP for a player that's not a quarterback. And that's got to be Saquon. The biggest takeaway I have, though, from seeing that list of 5 Eagles up for awards, do you notice a trend? It's that all 5 guys, this is year 1 in Philadelphia. That list is such a compliment to Howie Roseman and the legendary work he did this offseason. He drafted Quinyon and Coop. He signed Saquon and Bond. He hired, in my opinion, Vic Fangio. He wanted him as the coordinator back in 2022 and in 2023. Howie Roseman brought all of those guys in this year. What a job. I mean, yes, I think it was more impressive what he did in 2017 and 2022 because of the overall size of that job. He had to take a roster in absolute rubble and chaos, and he quickly built them into Super Bowl teams. But the overall craft of the 2024 offseason, the efficiency, just nailing every free agent signing, draft pick, the coaching hires, the overall body of his work in 2024, I think just in a vacuum of how good of a job it was, it tops 2022 and 2017. He just did not miss this offseason. And that award list definitely shows that. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for tuning in. 2 more shows for you this week. Crossover Thursday with David Harrison of Locked On Commanders. Another Friday show for you as well. Got a special guest for that one as we get you ready for Eagles Commanders this Sunday in the NFC title. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen and watch each and every day. Louis DiBiase signing off. Thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.